The scanning ship Times, Eternal Wisdom Times, moved quietly through space near a small yellow star. Commander Veltar looked at the readings on his screen. His blue skin showed patches of excitement as he studied the data. "Another world with life," he said to his crew. "But look at these readings." The planet below was a mess. Storms bigger than most moons raged across its surface. The ground shook constantly from earthquakes. Volcanoes shot fire into the sky. Ice covered the top and bottom of the world while the middle burned with heat. Lightning struck the surface millions of times each day. "How does anything live down there?" asked Science Officer Krina. Her tentacles moved nervously as she read the data. "The radiation levels alone should kill everything." Veltar shook his head. "Yet our scans show billions of life forms, and one of them seems to be intelligent." The crew gathered around the main screen. They watched as their sensors showed cities on the planet's surface. Strange metal objects moved through the air and across the water, but what shocked them most was where the cities were built. "They live right next to the volcanoes," whispered Communications Officer Zeph. "And in the earthquake zones. And where the storms hit the hardest." "This makes no sense," Veltar said. "Every intelligent species we know builds their cities in the safest places. These creatures build them in the most dangerous spots." They spent 3 days watching the planet. The more they saw, the more confused they became. The beings down there seemed to enjoy the dangerous places. They climbed mountains for no reason. They went into the deep oceans where monsters lived. They even built homes on floating ice. "They must be very stupid," Krina decided. "Or maybe they don't understand danger." "Send a message to the Galactic Council," Veltar ordered. "We have found another primitive species. Request instructions." The reply came quickly. Ambassador Zexhai of the Celestial Dominion would come to make first contact. He was known for handling simple species that needed guidance. When Ambassador Zexhai arrived in his beautiful white ship, he was already sure about what he would find. His species, the Celestials, were tall and graceful. They lived on perfect worlds with no danger. They had been peaceful for thousands of years. "Show me what we're dealing with," he said to Veltar. The screens showed humans going about their daily lives. Zexhai watched children playing in the rain. He saw adults working in places where the ground could break open at any moment. He watched them laugh as waves crashed over their boats. "Classic persistent scavengers," Zexhai said with confidence. "They survive by being too stupid to know when to give up. We see this sometimes on death worlds." "Should we make contact?" Veltar asked. "Yes. But carefully. They're probably not smart enough for complex ideas. Keep the language simple." 8. The first contact happened over the radio. Zexhai spoke slowly and used easy words. "Hello, beings of the third planet. We come from the stars in peace." The response surprised him. The voice was clear and excited. "Hello, this is amazing. We're so happy to meet you. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I speak for the United Earth government. We have so many questions." "Dr. Chen," Zexhai said carefully. "We are from the Galactic Council. We want to help your people." "Help us? That's so kind. Please, come down and visit. We'll show you everything." Zexhai was confused by their excitement. Most primitive species were afraid during first contact. But these humans seemed delighted. When he landed his ship near one of their cities, hundreds of them gathered to watch. They smiled and waved. Dr. Chen met him at the landing site. She was smaller than him, with dark hair and bright eyes. She looked weak, but she moved with quick energy. "Welcome to Earth," she said, holding out her hand. "This is such an honor." Zexhai touched her hand briefly. Her skin felt warm, and her grip was stronger than he expected. "We are pleased to meet you too." The humans showed him around their city. Zexhai was amazed by what he saw. They had built tall structures that swayed in the wind instead of breaking. Their vehicles were designed to work in mud, snow, and water. Everything they made seemed built for disaster. "Why do you live in such dangerous places?" he asked Dr. Chen. She looked surprised by the question. Dangerous? This is just Earth. It's our home. But the storms, the earthquakes, the volcanoes, oh those, she laughed. We learn to work with them. They're part of life. HFY made notes about their simple thinking. They didn't even understand how dangerous their world was. The humans shared everything with him. They showed him their technology, their art, their history. They asked endless questions about other planets and species. They seemed especially interested in learning about peaceful worlds. Your planet sounds wonderful, Dr. Chen said when he described his homeworld. So calm and safe. How do you handle, well, problems? We avoid them. HFY explained. We plan carefully. We think before we act. We negotiate. Dr. Chen nodded, but he could tell she didn't really understand. After a week of studying humans, HFY made his report to the Galactic Council. The meeting was held in the Great Chamber on Harmony Station. Representatives from dozens of species listened as he spoke. The humans are clearly a primitive species, he said. They show all the signs of low intelligence. They live in dangerous places because they don't know better. They trust strangers immediately. They share their secrets freely. What do you recommend? Asked the council leader. A wise old being from the core worlds. Standard protection protocol, HFY replied. We offer them membership as a client species. We guide their development. We protect them from themselves and others, the council agreed quickly. It was an easy decision. They had handled dozens of primitive species this way. The humans would be given some basic technology and simple jobs. In return, they would be protected and fed. When HFY returned to Earth with the offer, the humans accepted immediately. Thank you so much, Dr. Chen said. We're so grateful. When do we start? We'll set up monitoring stations, HFY explained. Our scientists will study your world. We'll help you build better cities in safer places. Monitoring stations? Dr. Chen asked. To watch us? To help you, HFY said gently. We want to make sure you're safe. The humans seemed confused but happy. They helped build the alien stations. They volunteered to work with the alien scientists. They shared meals and stories with their new galactic friends. HFY felt good about the mission. Another primitive species had been saved from itself. Soon the humans would learn to be civilized. They would move away from the dangerous parts of their world. They would become peaceful and safe. He had no idea how wrong he was. 6 months after first contact, strange reports started coming in from across the galaxy. The Galactic Council's officials read them with growing confusion. A human mining team worked for 18 hours straight in the Kepler radiation fields, reported mining supervisor Quintal. The radiation should have killed them in 2 hours. But they kept working and asking for overtime. Impossible, said HFY when he read the report. Your sensors must be broken. But more reports kept coming. Human workers were being sent to the worst jobs in the galaxy. Everyone expected them to die quickly, but instead, they thrived. They volunteered for dangerous missions that other species refused to do. Captain Mordek of the freight ship Times Starhauler Times sent a video message to the council. His rocky face showed complete bewilderment. The humans you sent me are crazy, he said. We hit a meteor storm near Rigel 7. I told everyone to get to the safety pods. The other crew members followed orders. But the humans? They went outside to fix the hull while we were still in the storm. The video showed human crew members in spacesuits, working calmly while chunks of rock flew past them at deadly speeds. They laughed and joked over the radio as they welded metal patches onto the ship. They saved my ship, Mordek continued. But they shouldn't have survived. No one works in a meteor storm. No one. Dr. Thel Run, the council's chief xenobiologist, studied all the reports. She was a careful scientist who had studied hundreds of species. But humans made no sense to her. Their physical abilities don't match their performance, she told HFY. They're not stronger than other species. They're not faster. Their senses are actually quite poor compared to most intelligent life, but somehow they do things that should be impossible. Maybe they're too stupid to understand the danger, HFY suggested. Fear keeps most species alive. Perhaps humans don't feel fear properly. Dr. Thelrun shook her head. I've tested that. They feel fear just fine, but they ignore it when they think something important is at stake. The most puzzling reports came from diplomatic missions. The Council had started sending humans along as assistants, thinking their simple nature might be useful for carrying bags and taking notes. Captain Sarah Chen, the same human who had met HFY during first contact, was now leading these diplomatic missions. She had asked for the job, saying humans wanted to help make peace in the galaxy. Her first mission was to negotiate with the Thraxi Horde. The Thraxi were warriors who had been fighting the same war for 300 years. They were famous for eating diplomats who brought weak offers. Send our best negotiator, the Council had decided, and some humans to carry supplies. War Master Thekmar was the most experienced diplomat in the galaxy. He had ended dozens of conflicts. He brought a team of expert negotiators, military advisors, and guards. The humans came along as helpers. Captain Chen had brought a strange team with her. Instead of warriors or diplomats, she brought a teacher named Mr. Rodriguez, an engineer called Dr. Patel, and a medical doctor named Dr. Kim. HFY thought this proved how little humans understood about serious diplomacy. The Thraxi leader, Warlord Graktar, was 12 feet tall and covered in scars. His teeth were sharp as knives. He had killed the last 3 diplomatic teams that visited him. You come to make us weak, he roared at War Master Thekmar. We will never stop fighting. Thekmar tried his usual approach. He offered technology, trade deals, and resources. But Graktar just got angrier. Then something unexpected happened. Captain Chen stepped forward. Excuse me, she said politely to the giant warlord. I'm just a human, so I don't understand much. But can I ask why you're fighting? Dryan, Graktar laughed, showing his terrible teeth. Stupid human. We fight because our enemies stole our sacred mountain. That must hurt a lot, Chen said. Losing something sacred. The warlord stopped laughing. Yes. It hurts. We humans have sacred places too, Chen continued. If someone took them, we'd probably fight forever to get them back. Graktar stared at her. No one had ever said they understood his pain before. Chen turned to Mr. Rodriguez, you're a teacher. Do the Thraxi have children? All intelligent species have young ones, Rodriguez said with a smile. And you, Dr. Patel? Chen continued. Could we build something on that mountain? Something that honors both sides? Dr. Patel nodded. Mountains are good for building. Strong foundations. Dr. Kim stepped forward. Are your people hurt from all the fighting? I'm a doctor. Maybe I could help. Graktar looked confused. These small humans weren't offering him bribes or making threats. They were offering to understand his problems and help fix them. The negotiation took 3 days. At the end, Graktar agreed to peace talks, not because the humans were clever negotiators, but because they had listened to him and treated his pain as real. How did you do that? War Master Thekmar asked Chen as they left the Thraxi homeworld. We just talked to him like a person, Chen replied. Everyone has problems. Most people will listen to solutions if you listen to their problems first. Thekmar made notes about human diplomatic methods. They seemed too simple to work. But they had ended a 300-year war in 3 days. More reports came in about humans forming strange bonds with alien crew members. They seemed to adopt aliens as family. A human mechanic named Jake Morrison had spent his own money to send medicine to a sick Zorblaxian child he'd never met. The child belonged to a crew member on his ship. The Zorblaxian wasn't even a friend, reported Captain Velcor. Morrison had only known him for 2 weeks. But when he learned about the sick child, Morrison worked double shifts to earn money for medicine. He said the child was crew family now. Dr. Thelrun studied this behavior. Humans seem to form pack bonds with other species, she reported to the Council. This is highly unusual. Most species only bond within their own kind. Pack bonds? HFY asked. They treat other beings as family members worth protecting. Dr. Thelrun explained. even when there's no logical benefit to them. AT&T. The council found this behavior strange but harmless. If humans wanted to waste their money helping aliens, that was their choice. But then came the reports about human endurance. A human construction worker named Maria Santos had worked for 36 hours straight to finish building a hospital before a plague outbreak. She had refused to sleep until the building was done. The other workers needed rest every 8 hours, reported site manager Klexton. Santos just kept working. We had to force her to eat food. She said people were dying while she rested. Another report came from a research station. Human scientist Dr. James Wright had figured out a solution to a problem that had puzzled alien scientists for months. But his method was completely different from normal scientific thinking. He didn't just study the data, reported research director Melvin. He talked to everyone who had worked on the problem. He asked about their feelings, their families, their fears. Then he solved it by thinking about what would happen to real people if the problem wasn't fixed. The aliens were starting to realize that humans approached every problem differently than other species. They didn't just think about logic or efficiency, they thought about relationships, emotions, and consequences for individuals. Most puzzling of all, humans seemed to work harder when the stakes were higher. While other species became more careful when danger increased, humans became more determined. It's backwards, Doctor, Thelrun told the council. Most intelligent species preserve themselves when facing greater threats. Humans seem to become more willing to sacrifice when others are in danger. Zexhai still believed humans were just simple creatures who didn't understand the galaxy properly. But deep in his mind, a small doubt was growing. These humans were too consistent in their strangeness to be simply stupid. Something was different about them. Something the Galactic Council didn't understand yet, and in the dark spaces between the stars, an ancient evil was stirring. Soon, the galaxy would discover what humans could really do when people they cared about were threatened, but that discovery would terrify everyone who witnessed it. The attack came without warning on a Tuesday morning, Galactic Standard Time. Research Station Omega-7 was conducting peaceful experiments on plant growth when 6 pirate ships surrounded them. The station had no military protection, only science equipment and a small security force. Station Commander Yelbash followed standard Galactic Council protocol. He opened communications with the pirates and prepared to negotiate. "This is Commander Yelbash of Research Station Omega-7, he said calmly. "We are a civilian facility. State your demands." The pirate leader's face appeared on screen. Captain Skoron was a member of the Korath species, known for their cruelty. His red eyes gleamed with hunger. "We want all your research data and any valuable materials," Skoran growled. "Surrender now, and maybe we won't kill everyone." Yelbash nodded. This was normal. Pirates wanted information and goods, not violence. He would give them what they asked for, and they would leave. Everyone understood the rules. "We agree to your terms," Yelbash said. "Please dock at Base 7, and we will transfer everything you request." But something went wrong. As the pirate ships approached, one of them fired on the station's power generator. The shot wasn't meant to cause damage, just to show they were serious, but it hit a fuel line and caused an explosion. The blast tore a hole in the station's hull. Emergency alarms screamed as air rushed out into space. 3 researchers were sucked toward the breach before emergency barriers could seal it. On the station's main deck, Dr. Elena Vasquez was running toward the damaged section when she saw what was happening. The 3 researchers, all from different alien species, were trapped behind a damaged barrier. The metal was bending outward, and it would break in minutes. Dr. Vasquez was a xenobiologist from Earth. She had been studying plant samples when the attack began. She was small, even for a human, and she had no military training. According to Galactic Council records, she should have followed evacuation procedures and waited for rescue. But Dr. Vasquez didn't follow the rules. She grabbed a cutting torch from the maintenance locker and started welding the barrier. The metal was superheated and glowing red. Alien safety protocols said no one should get within 10 feet of it. But Dr. Vasquez pressed her body against the hot metal to get a better angle for welding. "Elena, get away from there!" shouted Dr. Crintal, a celestial researcher who was helping coordinate the evacuation. "You'll be killed, not leaving them," Dr. Vasquez called back. Her voice was calm, almost cheerful. "Just need a few more minutes." The pirate boarding party broke through the main airlock at that moment. 6 heavily armed Korath warriors entered the station, expecting to find cowering civilians. Instead, they found Dr. Elena Vasquez. She had finished welding the barrier and saved the 3 trapped researchers. Now she stood between the pirates and the evacuating civilians. In her hands, she held containers of chemicals from her lab. "Stop right there," she said politely. The lead pirate, a warrior named Grexmore, laughed. He was twice her size and covered in armor. "Little human, get out of our way." "I can't do that," Dr. Vasquez said. She was still smiling. "People are still evacuating behind me." Grexmore raised his weapon. "Then you die." Dr. Vasquez threw the first container at the pirate's feet. It shattered and released a cloud of gas. The pirate's sensors immediately started screaming warnings. The gas was highly corrosive and would eat through their armor in seconds, but Dr. Vasquez was standing in the same cloud, wearing only her lab coat. "That sulfuric compound mixed with organic accelerants," she explained as the pirates backed away from the spreading gas. "It dissolves most metals, but it's harmless to Earth-based biology." She threw the second container. This one released a sticky foam that hardened instantly when it touched air. 2 of the pirates were caught in it and couldn't move. "Polymerizing adhesive," Dr. Vasquez said. "We use it to trap insect specimens. Works on bigger specimens, too." Grexmore fired his weapon at her, but the energy beam passed harmlessly through her. She had moved while he was distracted by his trapped companions. The third container released a blinding flash. When the pirates' vision cleared, Dr. Vasquez was gone. But they could hear her voice coming from the air vents above them. "Magnesium flare," she called down. "I'll keep these coming until you leave. Or until you run out of air. Your choice." Eye-blind, the pirates had never faced anything like this. They were trained to fight soldiers and security forces. They understood weapons and armor and tactics. But this human was using science equipment like weapons. And her methods made no sense. "How is she moving so fast?" Grexmore demanded. "The gravity here is heavier than Earth normal," came Dr. Vasquez's voice from a different vent. "What feels heavy to me feels normal to you. What feels normal to me makes me much faster than you expect." More containers dropped from the ceiling. These ones released a sleeping gas that was designed to safely sedate large animals for study. The pirates started feeling drowsy. "This is what we use on Earth elephants," Dr. Vasquez explained. "Completely safe, but you'll sleep for about 6 hours." 2 more pirates collapsed. Grexmore and his remaining companion ran toward the airlock, but they found their path blocked by more sticky foam. "The evacuation is complete," Dr. Vasquez announced, dropping down from a ceiling panel behind them. "You can leave now. Please don't come back." She was no longer smiling. Her eyes were cold and focused. "If you threaten these people again, I won't be so gentle." The pirates fled to their ships. They reported to Captain Scoran that the station was defended by a demon in a lab coat who used impossible weapons. Security cameras had recorded everything. The footage spread through the Galactic Council's networks within hours. Beings across the galaxy watched a small human woman single-handedly defeat 6 armed pirates using nothing but laboratory chemicals and her knowledge of science. Ambassador Zexhai watched the recording 3 times before he believed it was real. "How did she know to do all that?" he asked Dr. Thelrun. "I interviewed her afterward," Dr. Thelrun replied. "She said it was basic improvisation. Apparently, humans are taught from childhood to use whatever tools are available to solve problems. But the risks she took. She said the risks to herself didn't matter because people were depending on her." Dr. Thelrun's tentacles moved nervously. She was genuinely confused when I asked why she didn't just follow evacuation procedures. Zexhai began studying human history more carefully. What he found made him deeply uncomfortable. Humans had something in their past that the Council's translators couldn't properly render. The closest translation was total war. What does this mean? He asked the translation computer. Concept unknown in galactic languages, the computer replied. Approximate meaning. Mobilization of entire planetary population and resources for conflict resolution. Estimated translation accuracy. 47%. Show me examples. The computer displayed human historical records. HFY read about something called World War II. According to the records, humans had turned their entire planet into a war machine. Factories that made automobiles started making tanks. Scientists who studied medicine started making poison gas. Children collected metal to build weapons. This must be exaggerated, HFY said. No species could survive this level of conflict. But the records were clear. Humans had fought wars that involved everyone on their planet. They had created weapons capable of destroying all life on Earth, then chose not to use them. They had faced extinction and responded by becoming more dangerous to their enemies than their enemies were to them. Most disturbing of all, they had stopped fighting when they won. They had helped rebuild the countries they had defeated. They had turned enemies into allies. They're not just warriors, Dr. Thelrun said when HFY shared his findings. They're warriors who choose when to fight and when to stop. That might be more dangerous than constant aggression. The footage from Research Station Omega-7 had another effect. Humans across the galaxy started receiving different assignments. Instead of just manual labor and dangerous jobs, they were being asked to handle security problems and difficult negotiations. Captain Sarah Chen was promoted to lead a new kind of diplomatic mission. Instead of just talking to peaceful species, she would visit worlds where conflicts couldn't be solved through normal means. Her first assignment was the Rigel system, where two species had been fighting over mining rights for 50 years. Standard diplomatic methods had failed repeatedly. The Vortakians and the Zelknari have both lost thousands of lives, Chen was told. They hate each other too much to negotiate. What if they didn't have to negotiate with each other? Chen asked. What do you mean? Chen smiled the same gentle smile she had used during first contact. What if they negotiated with us instead? 3 days later, Chen's team arrived in the Rigel system. But she didn't bring diplomats or negotiators. She brought engineers, doctors, teachers, and farmers. We're here to help, she announced to both sides. Not to take sides or make judgments, just to help. HFY watched the mission reports with growing alarm. The humans weren't following any known diplomatic procedures. They were doing something entirely new, and it was working. But as he read more about human history and capabilities, one thought kept disturbing him. If humans could do all this while trying to be peaceful and helpful, what could they do if someone really made them angry? He hoped he would never find out. But in the dark spaces at the edge of the galaxy, something was stirring that would soon answer that question, and the answer would change everything. The emergency alert reached every world in the Galactic Council at the same time. Deep space monitors had detected something that made every species remember their oldest nightmares. The Void Swarm has found us, announced Council Leader Morgan, his ancient voice shaking with fear. In the Great Assembly Hall, representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in stunned silence. The Void Swarm was legend to most of them. A horror story from the early days of galactic civilization. But the older species remembered. The swarm was not just an enemy, it was extinction. A species of living ships that consumed everything in their path. They didn't want territory or resources. They wanted to eat entire civilizations. How many ships? Asked War Marshal Thekval of the Krugan Empire. Our sensors show at least 10,000 vessels, Morgan replied. And they're moving toward the core worlds. We have perhaps 6 months before they reach the first populated systems. The assembly erupted in panicked discussions. Every species began planning the same thing. Evacuation. The standard response to the Void Swarm was to run away and hide until they moved on. Ambassador HFY stood up in the human section. Next to him, Captain Sarah Chen looked calm as always. What is the Council's plan? HFY asked. Strategic withdrawal, Morgan announced. We will evacuate the outer colonies and establish defensive positions around the core worlds. All military forces will focus on protecting the most populated planets. Chen raised her hand. Excuse me. What about fighting them? The assembly fell silent. Then, slowly, some of the older representatives began to laugh. It was not happy laughter. Young human, said Elder Velthar of the Cosmic Dominion. Your species has only known the galaxy for a year. The Void Swarm has destroyed 17 civilizations. They cannot be fought. Why not? Chen asked. Because they adapt, explained General Kortok, the galaxy's most famous military leader. Every weapon we use against them, they learn to resist. Every tactic we try, they counter. And they grow stronger by eating our dead. Chen nodded thoughtfully. So fighting them the same way other people fought them won't work. Fighting them at all won't work, General Kordak said firmly. Has anyone tried fighting them differently? The assembly looked confused. There was only one way to fight. Use your weapons. Follow tactics. Try to win with minimum losses. What do you mean? Elder Velthar asked. Chen smiled. It was the same gentle smile she always wore. But something about it made Zexhai feel cold. On Earth, we have a saying, Chen explained. If you're fighting fair, you're doing it wrong. The council didn't understand what she meant. But they were desperate enough to listen when the humans volunteered for suicide missions. We'd like to take some ships and scout the swarm, Chen said. Get close and see what we're dealing with. Those would be one-way missions, War Marshal Thekvol pointed out. You can't get close to the swarm and survive. We understand, Chen replied. The council was shocked. No species volunteered for certain death. But humans were lining up to pilot explosive-laden ships into the heart of the enemy fleet. Why? Asked Elder Velthar. Because if we don't try everything, everyone dies, Chen said simply. And we'd rather die trying than live. Knowing we gave up. But the humans weren't just throwing their lives away randomly. They had a plan that horrified every alien who learned about it. Earth was being evacuated. But not because humans were running away. They were turning their entire planet into a weapon. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the scientist who had stopped the pirates, was now leading a project that made no sense to alien minds. She was filling Earth's oceans with experimental chemicals. She was planting modified viruses in the forests. She was building massive bombs inside the planet's core. What are you doing? Zexhai asked when he visited Earth to see the evacuation. If the swarm wants to eat our world, Dr. Vasquez explained, we're going to make it the most poisonous meal they've ever had. But you're destroying your own planet. Better than letting them use it to grow stronger, she replied. Don't worry. We're not leaving anything they can use. While Earth was being prepared as a trap, human volunteer ships were flying directly into swarm formations. They weren't trying to win battles. They were collecting data. Captain Morrison, the mechanic who had helped alien crew members, was piloting one of these suicide ships. His final transmission was heard across the galaxy. The swarm ships are biological, but they use quantum processors for coordination. If we can disrupt the quantum field. Oh, that's interesting. They're trying to communicate with me. Sorry, ugly. Not interested in joining your hive mind. Beginning final approach now. For humanity and for everyone we protect. His ship exploded against a swarm vessel. But before it did, he had transmitted detailed scans of swarm biology and technology. The data was sent to Dr. Vasquez and her team. What they did with it shocked every alien scientist who learned about it. They started building weapons using swarm technology against itself. This is impossible, Dr. Thelrund said when she saw the human research. You can't use their own biology as a weapon. It would require understanding their entire genetic structure. We figured it out, said Dr. Chen's daughter, who was now leading the biological weapons program. Her name was Dr. Lisa Chen, and she smiled just like her mother. It turns out, swarm biology is based on quantum entanglement. Very elegant, really. But that means if we modify their genetic markers and introduce them back into their population, we can make them attack each other instead of us, Dr. Lisa Chen finished. We call them hunter-killers. Swarm organisms that think other swarm organisms are food. Dr. Thelrun stared at the young human woman. You're going to use their children against them. We're going to use their biology against them, Dr. Chen corrected. The fact that they reproduce by consuming other life forms just makes it more efficient. The first wave of swarm ships reached the outer colonies 6 months later. They found empty worlds, just as expected. But when they tried to consume the planets, something went wrong. The planets fought back. Human volunteers had stayed behind on every evacuated world. They had spent months preparing surprises for the swarm. When the alien ships tried to land and feed, they discovered that the very ground was poisonous to them. Worse, the modified swarm organisms that humans had created were already spreading through their fleet. Within days, swarm ships were attacking each other. The aliens watched in horrified fascination as humanity waged war in a way no one had ever seen before. They didn't just fight with weapons. They used psychology, biology, chemistry, and physics as tools of destruction. When the swarm adapted to human poisons, humans created new ones. When the swarm learned to resist human hunter-killers, humans modified them. When the swarm tried to retreat and regroup, they found that human ships had somehow appeared behind them. How are you doing this? War Marshal Thekvol asked Chen during a strategy meeting. We're not fighting them, Chen explained. We're making them fight themselves. Every adaptation they develop, we turn into a new weakness. But your casualties are acceptable. Chen finished. Her smile never wavered, but her eyes were hard as diamonds. We don't count the cost when everything we love is at stake. The final battle came when the swarm's main fleet reached Earth. They found a planet that looked dead and empty, perfect for consumption. But when the first swarm ships entered Earth's atmosphere, the planet exploded. Not just the surface. The entire world detonated with the force of a small star. The explosion was so massive that it destroyed not just the swarm fleet, but created a quantum shockwave that disrupted their coordination across the entire galaxy. In the aftermath, scattered swarm vessels found themselves cut off from their collective intelligence. Human ships, which had been hiding throughout the galaxy, emerged to hunt down the survivors. It took 3 months to find and destroy the last swarm ship. The galaxy was saved, but the cost had been beyond anything the Galactic Council could have imagined. An entire species had sacrificed their homeworld. Millions of humans had died. An ancient evil that had destroyed 17 civilizations had been completely wiped out, and the humans were already talking about rebuilding. We'll find a new planet, Captain Chen said at the victory celebration. Earth was just dirt and water. Home is wherever humans choose to make it. Ambassador HFY stared at her. You destroyed your own world. We protected everyone else's worlds, she corrected. That was the mission. For the first time in his life, HFY was afraid of the species he was talking to. And in the quiet after the battle, every being in the galaxy was asking the same question. If humans could do this to save people they barely knew, what would they do to protect people they actually loved? The answer would reshape galactic civilization forever. 3 years after the Void Swarm War ended, Ambassador HFY sat in his office reading reports he still couldn't believe. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The humans had rebuilt, not just their civilization, but the entire structure of galactic society. They had chosen a new homeworld called New Terra. It was a dangerous planet, with active volcanoes and frequent storms. Other species had offered them safe, peaceful worlds. The humans had politely declined. We like a little excitement, Captain Chen had explained when asked why they chose such a difficult world. But that wasn't the strangest thing. The strangest thing was how other species were changing because of human influence. Young aliens across the galaxy were asking questions that had never been asked before. They wanted to know why their ancestors had always run from danger instead of facing it. They wondered why no one had ever tried to fight the Void Swarm differently. Some of them were even moving to dangerous worlds, saying they wanted to live like humans. Elder Velthar, of the Cosmic Dominion, had requested a private meeting with HFY. The ancient being looked troubled when he arrived. We need to discuss the human problem, Elder Velthar said. What problem? HFY asked, though he suspected he knew. "They're not following the rules," Elder Velthar replied. "They're supposed to be a client species under our protection. But they've become something else." It was true. Officially, humans were still listed as a primitive species, needing guidance. But in reality, they were being consulted on every major decision the Council made. Other species asked for human advisors for difficult problems. Human techniques were being studied and copied across the galaxy. "What do you suggest we do?" Zexhai asked. "We need to understand what they really are," Elder Velthar said. "Our initial classification was clearly wrong. That was the biggest understatement in galactic history." Dr. Thel Run had spent the last 3 years studying human biology, psychology, and history. Her final report had shocked the entire council. "Humans are not persistent scavengers," she had concluded. "They are apex predators who evolved on a death world. Everything about them is designed for survival in impossible conditions." The report detailed how humans had developed their unusual abilities. Their homeworld was so dangerous that only the most adaptable, most determined, and most cooperative individuals could survive. Over millions of years, this had created a species unlike anything else in the galaxy. "They don't just adapt to their environment," Dr. Thelrun's report explained. "They adapt their environment to themselves. They don't just survive dangerous conditions, they thrive in them. And most importantly, they extend this protection to anyone they consider part of their group." The report included a new term that the translation computers had struggled with: pack bonding. Humans formed emotional attachments with other beings, and then treated threats to those beings as threats to themselves. "This explains their behavior during the war," the report continued. "They didn't sacrifice themselves for strangers. In their minds, every being in the galaxy had become part of their pack. Threats to the galactic community were threats to their extended family." But the most disturbing part of the report was the conclusion. Humans are not primitive. They are the galaxy's first true apex predators to achieve interstellar travel. Their gentleness is not weakness, it is choice. And that choice becomes more meaningful the more capable they are of violence. Zexhai had studied the Void Swarm war records extensively. What humans had done wasn't just military strategy. It was something that had no name in any galactic language. They had fought with complete commitment while maintaining perfect emotional control. They had used weapons that other species couldn't even imagine while following strict moral guidelines they imposed on themselves. Most frightening of all, they had shown mercy to their enemies. When the last swarm ships had surrendered, humans had tried to communicate with them instead of simply destroying them. "We wanted to understand why they ate other civilizations," Dr. Lisa Chen had explained. "Maybe we could have helped them find another way to live." The swarm creatures had been too alien to communicate with, and too dangerous to keep alive. But the fact that humans had tried to help their enemies, even after everything they had done, showed a kind of thinking that scared other species. A year after the war, Captain Sarah Chen had been promoted again. She now held a position that didn't officially exist: Guardian of Galactic Peace. Her job was to handle threats that normal diplomacy and military action couldn't solve. She led a mixed crew of humans and aliens who specialized in impossible missions. They had stopped 3 wars, negotiated peace in 6 border disputes, and somehow convinced a species of space pirates to become asteroid miners. Zexhai had watched recordings of Captain Chen's latest diplomatic mission. She had convinced 2 species who had been fighting for centuries to not just stop fighting, but to intermarry and share their worlds. "How did you do it?" the interviewer had asked. "We showed them pictures of their children," Chen had replied. "Both species love their young ones. Once they saw that the children of both species were equally precious, they couldn't justify the fighting anymore." It was typical human logic: simple, emotional, and somehow incredibly effective. But the most significant change in the galaxy was something no one talked about openly. Every major civilization now had human advisors. Not because they were ordered to, but because they wanted them. When the Rigel Mining Consortium faced a disaster that trapped workers underground, they called human engineers. When the Andorian Empire couldn't solve a food shortage, they asked human farmers for help. When the crystal hegemony's children were dying from a plague, they begged human doctors for assistance. Humans never said no. They've become the galaxy's immune system, Elder Velther observed during his meeting with Zexhai. Whenever there's a problem, humans appear to fix it. Is that bad? Zexhai asked. That depends, Elder Velthar replied. On what happens if someone threatens something humans care about? The answer to that question came sooner than anyone expected. Pirates attacked a civilian transport carrying children from 12 different species to an education center on Harmony Station. It should have been a simple robbery. The pirates demanded money and supplies, nothing more. But one of the pirate captains, a cruel being named Vex Carr, decided to take some of the children as slaves. The news reached human space 3 hours later. What happened next had never been seen in galactic history. Every human ship in the galaxy stopped what it was doing and headed for the pirates' location. Not just military ships, civilian transports, research vessels, mining ships, even the unarmed diplomatic vessels, the pirates found themselves facing over 2,000 human ships. They weren't warships, but they had been modified with weapons built from farming equipment, mining tools, and research devices. Captain Chen led the rescue mission personally. She opened communications with the pirate fleet. "This is Captain Chen of the Human Guardian Fleet," she said. Her voice was calm and pleasant as always. "You have taken children. Return them now, and you will be allowed to leave." Vex's car laughed. "Stupid humans! We have hostages! You can't attack us." "You're right," Chen agreed. "We can't risk the children by attacking your ships." Vexcar felt pleased. The humans were backing down just like every other species. Then Chen continued. "So we're going to board your ships instead." Before Vexcar could respond, every human ship opened its cargo bays. Thousands of humans in spacesuits poured out, flying through space with nothing but small maneuvering thrusters. They landed on the pirate ships like deadly raindrops. They used cutting tools to open airlocks, explosive charges to blow holes in hulls, and whatever weapons they could improvise from their equipment. The battle lasted 6 minutes. When it was over, every child was safe and every pirate was captured. Not one child had been harmed. Vexcar was brought before Chen on his own ship. She had found him hiding in his personal quarters. "How?" he asked in disbelief. "How did you take my ship so quickly?" "We didn't come to take your ship," Chen explained with her gentle smile. "We came to take our children back. Everything else was just an obstacle to be removed." The rescue was recorded by news crews throughout the galaxy. Every species watched as humans had somehow turned a hostage situation into a perfect rescue operation. But it was the aftermath that really changed everything. Instead of executing the pirates or imprisoning them, humans put them to work, helping rebuild the places they had damaged. Vex's car himself was assigned to work in the same school where the children he had tried to kidnap were studying. "They're making him help teach safety classes," Dr. Thelrun reported to the council. "The children know who he is, and they're trying to help him become a better person." "That's insane," Elder Velthar said. "That's human," Zexhai corrected. 5 years after first contact, the Galactic Council finally officially reclassified humanity. They were no longer listed as a primitive client species. The new classification had required creating entirely new categories: Apex Guardians and Voluntary Protectors. Captain Chen, now Admiral Chen, attended the reclassification ceremony. She accepted the Council's apology for misjudging her species with the same gentle smile she had always worn. "We understand why you made the mistake," she said. "We probably would have done the same thing." How can you forgive us so easily?" asked Council Leader Morgan. "Because holding grudges doesn't help anyone," Chen replied. "And because we know you'll do better now that you understand us." After the ceremony, Zexhai found himself alone with Admiral Chen. He had a question that had been bothering him for years. "Sarah," he said, using her first name for the first time. "When we first met, were you really as innocent as you seemed?" Chen's smile became warmer, more genuine. "Zexhai, we were exactly as innocent as we seemed. We had no idea how dangerous the galaxy could be. We trusted you completely." Then how did you become so capable? We didn't become anything, Chen explained. We always were what we are. The difference is that now we know what we're protecting. She gestured toward a window showing the space station around them. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species lived and worked together in peace. When we first met you, we were protecting just Earth, Chen continued. Now we're protecting all of this. Everyone we've met, every world we've seen, every child who looks up at the stars and dreams of exploring them. That's our pack now, our family, and anyone who threatens your family. We'll discover what happens when you make humanity angry, Chen finished. But hopefully, that will never be necessary. We much prefer being the people who help build schools and stop pirates and negotiate peace. HFY nodded. He finally understood what the galaxy had missed during first contact. Humans weren't primitive because they lacked intelligence or technology. They had seemed primitive because their true nature was so far beyond galactic experience that it couldn't be recognized. They were apex predators who had chosen to be gardeners, warriors who preferred to be teachers, killers who would rather be healers, and the most terrifying thing of all was that they were just getting started. Every year, they found new ways to protect and help the beings they had adopted as family. Every challenge made them more creative, more determined, more protective. The galaxy had gained the most dangerous guardians in its history, and the most gentle. As HFY watched Admiral Chen walk away, heading off to her next mission to negotiate peace in some distant conflict, he reflected on how completely they had all misjudged humanity. They had thought humans were weak because they were kind. They had thought humans were stupid because they trusted easily. They had thought humans were primitive because they lived dangerously. They had been wrong about everything. Humans weren't weak. They were strong enough to choose kindness over cruelty. They weren't stupid. They were wise enough to trust first and verify later. They weren't primitive. They were advanced enough to thrive in conditions that would destroy other species. And now they were the galaxy's guardians, watching the dark spaces between the stars, ready to protect anyone who needed protection. The galaxy was safer than it had ever been, and it had achieved this safety by completely misjudging the most dangerous species in its history.